have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Oh, there you go. Put myself down there and drop my thing all at the same time. Doesn't work like that. Pick up the mouse and move myself. How are you, folks? Welcome to your week. My week started a day late. Mondays is a bad day around here. I've got a lot of things I've got to catch up on over the weekend, and sometimes it makes it a little difficult to hit the show time as such. So my apologies if you hang out on a Monday night and I'm not here. I'm aiming to be here every Monday night. Missed it by that much last night. I hope you're all well. Let's have a bit of a glance who's in house tonight. Some pretty early birds because the show went up, I think, about 2 o'clock this afternoon. Macca. Yeah, there you go. 1:59. Well done, mate. Don't know if you managed to stick it out till now, but good on you getting in first. Sunflower and the rest of the crew dived in too. And I see the usual suspects. Sabinator, G'day Spaz. Michelle Bradley-Smith, love to you. Darren Bergworth. What's the topic tonight? Well, we got a few topics tonight, big fella, and none of them are going on holidays, unfortunately. But yeah, now we're going to talk about a few interesting bits and pieces tonight. The High Court challenge happening to our elections, which you may or may not know about. We're going to have a bit of a look at some interesting goings on. I've been telling you about the landslide at Blatten in Switzerland, which has brought down half a mountain and all of a glacier on top of a little village and blocked a river. That river's found its way through that mess and is slowly working its way down. Still a very bad situation for them all to be a part of there, I've got to say. A very, very bad situation. But it's not in isolation. Sides of mountains and glaciers are falling in Switzerland. Mount Etna explodes in Italy, in Sicily. And in Turkey, there is an earthquake, which I'll show you some vision of shortly, which is quite staggering in what it's done. It's ripped the earth apart for 400 kilometers. It's quite staggering. But the big thing that is happening is that looks a lot like the merch has arrived, and the new T-shirts, that's the one I'm getting, land of the fee, because we are. Let's face it, folks. If you want to do something in this country, you have to pay a fee to somebody to do it. You want to go fishing in most states, you have to buy a license to go and catch a fish on free land. I mean, it's just friggin' ridiculous. But if you would like to protest, then why don't you get yourself one of our T-shirts? You can go to merch.vofhq.com and you can pick one of these up. And you don't have to have it in this interesting color that Vince has picked out for me. It is a nice color. I mean, I'll wear it. I'll get it filthy dirty, but I'll wear it. But if you'd like a different color, there are a plethora of colors, and the new hoodies are in as well. In fact, you might have seen in that first picture down the bottom there, there's new zip-up hoodies and the pullover type ones as well. So, yeah, fair bit on. I do want to let you know that before we get into much of what we're doing today, we're going to catch up with Chris Tipper. Now, I managed to catch up with him a little earlier today, and I'll have that chat with him for you in just a little bit. But there are a few other interesting pieces that we will play out tonight, including a comment from one of our First Nations people who wants to make what I think is a very valid and very strong comment against our welcome to country. And I say our welcome to country. I don't know why I say that, because it's not our country at all, as we all well know. However, can only do what you do, I suppose. So we'll have a bit of a chat, and then we'll have a listen to what she has to say. I'm sure many of you will be very interested in her approach and her solution to the welcome to country.
Hi, are you passionate about supporting independent media and social events? Voice of Freedom is dedicated to bringing you the latest happenings and things that matter. But we can't do it without your help. By donating, sponsoring, or becoming a member, you're not just supporting our mission, you're joining a community that values transparency and engagement. Your contributions allow us to continue producing high-quality content that informs and inspires. Visit VOFHQ.com to make a donation or explore sponsorship or membership opportunities. You can even donate using crypto. Together, we can amplify voices that deserve to be heard as we continue to create a vibrant platform for social change. Go to VOFHQ.com. Help us to help you by joining us and making a difference today.
Ainsley Bullion, the place to go. AinsleyBullion.com.au if you're looking for anything in the precious metals market. And I know we talk to Michael Ingham pretty regularly here on the program, and Ainsley, of course, offer anybody who follows the Voice of Freedom or me a bit of a discount if you go in and buy through them. Just mention my name or the Voice of Freedom, and you will get yourself a bit of a discount next time you buy some bullion. However, today we're going to talk to somebody, well, a little different. Now, this fella I've been following since I started following Ainsley, and I have to say that Chris Tipper and his team put out some of the most amazing insights into the gold, or, well, let's call it the precious metals market, because they cover it all. And I've been wanting to get a hold of him for ages. Today, he joins me for the first time on the Voice of Freedom. Chris Tipper, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for the opportunity, Carl. I've been very keen to get on as well. We just haven't made it work, but look, let's try and make this a bit of a regular thing now. Hey, let's get together and have a chat, because look, there's so much happening in the space of precious metals, in this economy generally, things that we cover that I know your audience will be very interested in. So I'm quite keen to sort of have a chat with you and dig into some of these topics, because I think they're really relevant, and I think it's really important that people understand what's going on.
Well, I think a lot of the people that follow me have about as much knowledge of the gold or precious metals market as I did before I sort of had any association with you guys, and it's still my knowledge is in its infancy. I'm starting to pick up certain things that I think will influence the market, the gold or the silver market in one shape or another. But then I get an email from Ainsley Bullion with an analysis report, and I haven't even scratched the surface of what's going on. Your team, just how in-depth is the research that goes into the figures that you put out on a daily basis?
Quite a bit. So there's a few different levels to this. We start off really with the daily news, which is covering, obviously, as the name implies, things that are happening day to day. So that's research, obviously, but current research on what's happening at the time. But then we also put out some of the stuff that I'm more involved in my chief economist role, where we dig into a lot of the underlying data that is much more complicated. And that's the bit that a lot of people we left scratching their heads, I suppose, around things like global liquidity, which is how much money's flowing through the system and where that's coming from, and what's going on in the US in terms of their policies around how they deal with interest rates and bond markets and all of that sort of stuff. So it gets pretty deep in that end. I'd say it's a spectrum. I say we go from one end of the spectrum, sort of covering the current and relevant news, to the other end, trying to really dig into that background that becomes really relevant.
Well, of course, and it is that in-depth background that actually supplies you the knowledge to then figure out what governments are doing, where policy is going, what direction things are going, and whether or not to invest or not, or how much to put in, I suppose.
Absolutely. And even with all that analysis, it still becomes difficult. There was a good example of this. There was a rumour over the weekend that the chairman of the Federal Reserve, who's a very powerful man who effectively sets the interest rates that determine what's going on in the rest of the world, that he was going to resign on Monday, which would have been sort of Tuesday morning our time. And that didn't happen. So that sort of information, you have to have that bit of background to know what would happen if he had actually resigned, because if he had, there would have been absolute chaos in the markets today.
Why is that? Why is replacing the head of the Fed such a big deal? Wouldn't they have someone sitting, in the wings waiting to take over anyway? And why would this upset the market so much?
Well, it would upset the markets in what might seem like a good way initially, because what it would ultimately mean is that, in this case, Donald Trump would be replacing him with someone very much aligned to his agenda of bringing those interest rates down very quickly. And a lot of people would be very happy with that. Now, that's where this background information comes in. We'd be very happy with that from an investment perspective because we'd see the price of our precious metals shoot up very quickly. But
Yeah.
the problem, of course, is at the moment, that role, at least in theory, you could talk about this all day long about what actually goes on versus the theory, but that role in theory is there to not just pander to what the government wants to spend. Their role is to say, well, no, there's inflation creeping up in the background. We're not going to just cut rates. We're not going to do these things that make it very easy for the government to spend more money. We're going to sort of try and be a bit of a roadblock there. So if you pulled him out as someone who was sort of standing as that roadblock, it could create real issues because, yes, there'd be some money flowing, but as we know, when there's lots of money flowing down the track, you get the hangover from that. And that's why
Absolutely.
in the short term, it'd be very good, but it'd send the markets into a lot of chaos just because there'd be a whole lot of uncertainty about what was going to come next.
What should the average mum and dad investor be looking at in the market to figure out whether or not, A, their investments are in the right place or whether they should be shifting them or adding to them, in fact?
That's a really hard question. I think at its core at the moment, that's what our news is about. Really, if I break that down. So when you say what should people be looking at, they probably need a bit of a reliable source to keep coming back to. But the actual answer is really challenging because we're at a stage right now in the markets and in history where there is so much debt, like just astronomically large amounts of debt, that we're kind of in a destination. We know the destination is that the whole thing collapses on itself.
Yep.
We know that to avoid that as long as possible, you've got governments doing everything they possibly can to kick that can down the road so that doesn't happen immediately. So there are
on their watch. Yeah.
On their watch, that's right. So there are a couple of certainties that you have. If you're a mum and dad investor, a couple of certainties that you have right now in this period of time is that more money will continue to be printed because there's no choice, because otherwise the system collapses.
Yep.
And out of that, some investments do better than others at keeping up with that amount of money that's printed. And generally, that's where the precious metals comes in. That's why I'm so passionate about precious metals. But it's not just precious metals. Other things like property, anyone who's been trying to purchase a property over the last few years can attest to the fact that that's just kept going up and up and up. Real assets will be the things that benefit from the situation that we're in. But I think the trick for a lot of, when you say the mum and dads or people who are not really that familiar with what's going on in the background, is that some of the assets that worked in the past just won't work anymore to deliver those returns because it's a different environment that we're living in.
The environment is certainly different and volatile. I've not lived through through what is probably the real spectre of a world war until now. And we're seeing all sorts of Russia and Ukraine movements. We're hearing all sorts of things out of Europe. Wouldn't the prices of precious metals overall be impacted pretty broadly by just the statements that have been made, and particularly the last week? But going forward, nobody wants war, but is it going to be good for the price of silver?
Yes, is the short answer. The issue, and you're right, there's been so much noise, and I'll call it noise here, not downplaying the significance of the things that are being said, but so much noise for so long that the market gets almost fatigued from the next announcement and the next announcement. So if you think back to when Donald Trump was elected and came in, you had a lot of noise around that. There was going to be a lot of things that were changing. They did change, so that you have the news of something happening, then the actual thing happening. These conflicts are not new. We've had, they're escalating, but they're not new. So some of this is already priced in, but then the market's almost at the moment trying to figure out how much of this is actually going to happen because we've had so much noise and so much news for such a long period of time. We're under that constant fatigue that it becomes really tricky. And when you look at something like silver, as a good example, silver becomes quite volatile in that environment where if something does actually happen, we will have lines up out the door the next day. And this happened, over the last 12 months, we've had many of those sort of situations where things have actually happened. So you'll have line up out the door and then it goes really quiet because maybe it wasn't quite what people thought was going to happen, or what it's I think volatile is the right word. That's how I would describe it at the moment. But the trend, if you can remove yourself a little bit from that volatility, the trend has certainly been up and to the right, as we would describe it, that, it just seems to keep rising because the background tension in all of these situations has not been removed.
No, not at all. I won't hold you up because I know you're a very busy man, and I'm very grateful for the time that you get to spend with us. Before I let you go, though, I have to ask, and I know you probably don't know a great deal about it. It's only been released in the last 12 hours or so. China apparently have made a significant gold find. They've dug down, or they've sent a bore down some 2,000 odd meters and discovered a very, very, very rich ore vein, gold ore vein, that stretches for another 3,000 or 4,000 feet below it and is something like 3 kilometers wide. They're expecting it to be in the trillions and trillions of dollars. Now, woohoo for China. However, they are already the world's largest gold producer. How much of their gold, because they buy an awful lot of our gold, how much of their gold do they sell out to the rest of the world?
Well, effectively nothing. And they certainly have export controls in place that they're trying to keep all the gold inside the country. Of course, like any of those controls, there'll always be leakages. But it's a very interesting thing to think about, China having access to a lot more gold. First of all, I'd caution people to jump to too many conclusions around large discoveries because, firstly, it's China. We've got to be very careful with the data coming out of China when you hear things like this. But also, even if every part of what you just said was true, it's a massive process and a slow process to convert very large findings of gold into the market. And just setting up and establishing the infrastructure around extracting this would be a big process, and the market has a lot of time to absorb that. So people who are trading that, for example, I don't think that would be quite the right way to go about it. An interesting angle, though, that I'll leave you on with this is, if that is exactly what unfolds, the initial reports are true, and that amount of gold does end up above ground and in China's possession, that would be a strong argument for them to continue to move further down the path towards bringing gold back effectively as the reserve currency.
And
there's a lot of, that's right. So there would be a lot of arguments about why ultimately that, even with more supply, would ultimately still be positive for the price of gold. Because if the world ends up having to go back to effectively backing things with physical assets in a high inflationary environment, then everyone will be wanting more gold, and there's not that much actually above ground and in the system as it is. So you've got to be careful with some of those announcements, that you don't just jump to conclusions that it could be negative for gold, because as often people do when they say another large find, that means the price of gold is going to collapse. Often the more gold that's in the system actually reinforces the value of the gold that's in the system, if that makes sense. So you've got to be careful with that.
Is there a reason that Australia leaves the Palmer Gold Reserve alone? The Australian Gold Reserve up there in the Palmer Goldfields up north?
A lot of it will be, there's, as I'm sure your viewers will be very aware, there's a lot of regulation, a lot of complexity around new access to new gold
mine or leases,
mining, leases, all of that aspect. I don't know all the specifics about that, but I would be prepared to make a small wager that there's political aspects of it, of course, but also environmental and regulatory aspects that make that challenging. Difficult. And you've got to remember too that even though we go, well, gold's very expensive, yes, but relative to what it costs to dig it out of the ground, it's actually not as expensive as it might seem. So it's really got to be probably much higher gold prices to push everyone into action to say, okay, let's get that gold out of the ground.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All right, Chris, thank you very much for coming on today. I appreciate you spending a quarter of an hour of your very busy time with us, and look forward to doing this on a regular basis. You know, hopefully we'll be able to get it down to once a week, but I know you are a busy bloke.
No worries at all. Great to be on. Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, mate. Turfing people out of parks. Again, that was only just over the weekend. That's happening in councils all over Australia, not just on the Gold Coast. A great look. I would point out that that tent that they threw in there is absolutely empty. Nobody's belongings were in it. So why wouldn't you take your tent is the question. Why is that just being left for council cleanup? I would have thought if you're needing a tent, you'd want to take the tent wherever you're going. But they took all their belongings. So there was a fair bit of that going on across the weekend. It's happened right up and down the Queensland coast, and councils are now effervescent in their pursuit of people who have been kicked out of normal housing and have nowhere else to turn but a tent and a local park. It's just horrendous. And the police stand by and do nothing. It comes down a lot, I think, to council bylaws. Now, you know, there are interesting bylaws, and then there are laws, and then there are state laws and federal laws. And where do the bylaws fit in? So if you had a group that controlled a building on a certain site, well, hang on, let me play you something and let's see what you think of this.
Yeah, that's good. Hallelujah. All right.
Hey, sir.
Yeah, how you going?
Can I have a word with you over here?
Yeah, sure. Just my sign.
Hi, mate. Hi.
G'day, how you going?
I'm Constable Berwick Clerk.
Yes, how are you going?
Police station. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm good.
So, I understand that these gentlemen, their security. Do you understand that?
I understand the security.
So they've given you just a simple request, just to leave the sign over there. They do have bylaws here governing this area.
Yes.
You refused to comply with them. You've also failed to stop to speak with the security guard there.
Okay.
Now, since then, they've asked you multiple times, and as I understand, because I have dealt with them in the past,
Right.
they've tried to be reasonable with you.
Okay. Tell me what the crime I've done, please.
I'm not going to tell you anything.
You're not?
So-
Well, okay, I've done nothing then.
Okay, you're going to have to leave the
No,
operation, okay?
you're going to have to tell me what I'm
You've
doing
caused
wrong,
fear and
or I'm
alarm.
not going
Some places were
anywhere.
very clear. I'm sorry, it was police station.
Yes.
Wishing
You've
you
already
move
told
on
me.
direction. You've become
No, there's no
argumentative.
move on
Listen,
direction going to happen
You've
here.
become argumentative with security.
And I'll become argumentative with you as well. But unless you can tell me,
My name's Sergeant
unless you can tell me what I've done wrong.
You can't pre-chair, this is their bylaws.
Yeah, I
On
don't,
this
listen,
premises.
this is Australia,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
This, we have, the Constitution of Australia says I can preach religion anywhere in Australia, all right? That's all I'm doing. And I'm not even doing that. I'm just walking around looking at
Not with
that.
signage.
Wwhy?
Because there's bylaws governing this
They got
place.
different.
I'm not interested in bylaws. I'm
They got
interested in
different
being
laws.
I am,
free.
and you're breaching them, okay?
Well, I'm not breaking any law.
You are. Bylaws.
It is
yes.
not
No,
a
you are,
local
yes.
law. It is not a
No, it is.
state
It is.
law.
It's
It is
bylaw.
not a
It's
national
bylaw.
law.
This ground here is governed
Well,
by bylaws.
it might
Can't
be.
enforce those laws.
What are you going to do? You're going to arrest me?
I don't want to at this point. But
Well,
if
you
we
can
might
if you
go
like,
that route,
because on
I'm just asking
principle,
you to leave.
well, on principle, I'm not going to leave because I'm an Australian
I'm now
citizen
directing
and
you.
I can do it.
Don't be bullied.
I'm
We're not bullying
directing
anyone.
No,
We're not
well, you can do it.
You are.
So,
you all right. You okay.
Failing,
No, no,
failing
no,
as
Very
a
rude.
sir,
If
This
I
is doing our
can't,
job.
if I can't walk anywhere in Australia with this sign, there is a problem.
failing
If you want to take the authority, if you want to take the initiative to arrest, no, I'm not, because all you've said is you're going to arrest me for walking on this land with this sign. Is that what you've said? Is that what you've said?
Sorry?
Is that what you've said?
You can't have the sign.
I can't have the sign
Okay, so let's just start
because of
with-
some bylaw.
Come on, yep.
What about what I want to do?
So let's
What
start
about
walking.
being free?
Well, you can,
You are free.
This is Australia.
You're more than welcome
My name's
to do it.
James.
My name's Mike.
Mike, can you just walk with me and talk? Can we just
Of
talk?
course, I can do all that,
Well, what-
but
Can you not film me, please?
this is on. This is
Oh, look, I
on.
know you are, but I prefer
This is
you-
for our
You
protection.
are allowed
You
to.
know
You are
that?
allowed to.
Yes, of
All
course
the
we're
other
allowed
cameras
to.
on side.
Of
I
course.
just don't want it to get in my face, the camera. That's
All right.
I'm happy
Nothing
for
to
you
be
to do what
afraid
you want to do,
Mm.
but you can't do it here. I'm
Look.
being pretty decent, okay? They do have bylaws.
This is
here.
a silly bylaw. What harm? Tell me what
It's not,
harm
it's
this
not just
does.
you. It's
I know,
it's
but what
everyone.
harm
It
does it
doesn't-
do? What harm am I doing? Am I doing anything really
You
wrong?
know what was initially the problem was? I
Yeah.
tried to talk to you. When
No,
you came
but
on, See, now you won't talk.
I won't listen because
Why won't you listen?
you're going round in circles
I'm
about
not,
me doing
because
something wrong.
You wouldn't talk to me at stage one. You wouldn't talk to my colleague at stage one. It's not the sign as much as the issue.
And what's your name, sorry?
Sir? James.
James, I asked you which bylaw it was, what was the exact regulation, and what did it mean? Yeah, but tell me what it means. That means nothing to me.
That's exactly right. It's a bylaw. It means nothing. It means a small group of people sat around a table and decided that, oh, that bit of the steps and that portion of the harbour, no, you can't do anything out on there. That's all Opera House territory. And you won't be allowed to do anything there unless we sanction it. And, of course, I'm pretty confident there was not all that long ago a whole heap of Muslims out the front there screaming for blood in one way, sense or another. You don't seem to get those people moved on at all, or anybody else who wants to practice a religion, as long as that religion isn't Christianity. And yes, it certainly wasn't lost on me either that one of those gentlemen in there seems to have a relative in the Western Australian Police Force.
Good lad.
Yeah, go for it. Fuck it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting in everywhere, and they are actively targeting the Indians, folks, to become police officers. Now, the cultural, I can't begin, and I'm preaching to the converted, I know, but I cannot begin to tell you the cultural differences between Indians and Australians. I cannot begin to tell you the inability of Indians to understand Australian vernacular. I cannot begin to lay out the differences between what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable, language and circumstance and action, without pointing out that India, and by and large most Indians coming from India, fall well below the standard that we require in this country, as you can see by old mate in Western Australia. Now, here, police get abused and told to piss off all the time, and police generally do not react in that kind of a manner. But I have yet to find an Indian that a button cannot be pushed on. And usually it's not the button that you think will trigger them. It's something really, really innocuous, particularly to, the Australian vernacular. Maybe that's because they don't actually understand it. Maybe they've been taught the definition of it and they've been taught a wrong definition of what's being said. I'm not going to say these things. I don't want to trigger people. And I'm not targeting Indians per se. Well, I guess I am in a way, but at the moment, they are the largest influx coming across our borders, unchecked, despite what Albanese and co will tell you. Our border is wide open to the Indians. Why? Because they are... their cashed-up students are bringing money into our universities, and the universities are loving that. Of course, there is a bit of a restriction going to be placed on that, and some of them are starting to scream. I hope that restriction goes a lot further. We have a problem. I have no problem with bringing others in from other countries and educating them and sending them home again. The problem we have here in this country is that they don't go home. They somehow wind up on another list that enables them to stay, enables them to take our jobs, and enables them to invite their family over on the first plane coming with a red carpet entry to the country when they get here. Now, it's not just India, but India, due to the agreement signed by Albo Sleazy and Modi, I think about 18 months, 2 years ago, has thrown the doors wide open, and any fair-minded view of our immigration numbers will tell you the same. Do not bother listening to whatever the politicians are telling you, because we all know they are absolute frickin' liars. But things might be changing. Don't get your hopes up too high. A High Court petition has been lodged. The challenge will be heard in the federal court. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that they'll actually hear something? I don't know. Might mean they read it in the back room, all having a cigar, and then they discuss it before throwing it out. I don't know. But at least it's got past the gatekeeper. It's a dramatic legal petition that's been filed in the High Court seeking to overturn the results of both the 2022 and the 2025 federal elections, citing alleged misleading and deceptive conduct by that ponce of an idiot, Albanese, and the ALP. The challenge, filed under the Court of Disputed Returns, accuses Mr. Albanese of knowingly misleading the public through false campaign promises that allegedly swayed election outcomes and led to a Labor majority in both elections. The petition lodged by Robert Smith is a registered voter, invokes sections of the Commonwealth Electoral Act from 1918. And according to Mr. Smith, Labor's conduct during both elections constitutes an abuse of democratic integrity and warrants the nullification of both of those elections. It continues. Now, just a few of the things that he's asserting: that promises were made and not even the remotest possibility that any of this shit was going to come through. Promise lacked a reasonable basis at the time it was made. That the petition reads, the power prices have instead surged 25%. So, yeah, the petitioner claimed that Albanese repeated promises of lower household power bills by $275 a year by 2025. It was unfounded, unrealistic, and materially influenced voter behaviour. I would tend to agree with that. The 2025 elections, multiple broken promises. He points to making housing more affordable. We plainly know that's not happening. Reducing immigration levels. Ha! That's not happened. They do it in fakery. They'll tell you, oh, yes, we have reduced the numbers 100,000. That's bullshit. They up them in other areas, or they move these students over off a student visa to, some other kind of visa, one that says, oh, yeah, you can stay. Cutting grocery prices. Do you think it's cheaper at the groceries than it was 2 years ago, or even a year ago, or even a friggin' month ago? I was in the shop today. Not that I was looking to buy them, but there was some Rocky Road, looked like a packet of chocolate royals or something like that, right? A Rocky Road biscuity kind of thing. $13. 13 and a bit dollars they wanted for it. Couldn't believe it. So guaranteed I certainly wasn't going to be getting it. Not that I was in the market for it in the first place. Anyway, implementing universal free bulk billing under Medicare, that hasn't been put up either. The petitioner asserts that none of the promises were delivered and that Labor recklessly misled the public to gain votes. What Smith wants from the High Court is a declaration that both elections were void in whole or part, injunctions to prevent the certification of the 2025 election results, which I don't think has happened, but I'm not even completely sure they have been certified yet, because clearly the Labor Party and the AEC have some underhanded backroom handshake deal to circumvent the Constitution regarding this, because I have heard that the AEC are not releasing or ratifying the election results or even issuing the writs until the 19th of July. That's well after the 30 days our Constitution mandates that the Parliament must sit. And that fits in beautifully, though, with the way Albo Sleazy is touring the world with his bride-to-be at the moment. Oh, maybe he's back here. I don't know. Who cares? Does anybody follow him? Anyway, apparently he's going to catch up with Trump in a couple of weeks' time. That should be fun. Be interesting to watch Trump slap him around and hopefully embarrass the bejesus out of him in the Oval Office. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Injunctions to prevent the certification of elections, a new election in affected electorates or possibly across the nation. It would be across the nation, I would have thought. A full hearing into the conduct of the ALP under Albanese's leadership. Why stop there? Unfortunately, those during the inquiries are likely to be somewhat influenced, let's say. The petitioner claims that these promises had these promises not been made, voters may have chosen differently, possibly preventing Labor from forming a government. Will it go anywhere? That is a very good question. Now, historically, the answer is these sorts of things usually don't go anywhere. The judiciary, probably because of the nature of who appointed them, I'm being facetious. However, our High Court justices make it very hard for us to believe they are independent and willing to make hard choices. They are surrounded by cabal sycophants who protect the justices from any case which could bring the fraud to the public view. Now, are the justices aware of this? I suspect they are. Yes, I suspect this whole process is set up simply to protect them from ever seeing the evidence that they might have to rule on, because being a justice and because we will all be watching them very closely, you would think it would be harder for them to go against such wishes of the... It's the vibe, you know? But having said that, there is probably more than one coerced judge sitting in our High Court. There is probably more than one blackmailed justice sitting in our High Court. There is probably a number of lower, lesser justices sitting in the background of the High Court that have been compromised. And there is certainly a number of previous High Court justices that appear to have been compromised in some way as well. Coerced, blackmailed. How do we fight this? Well, with a bit of luck, this petition and this petitioner, Robert Smith, will have some luck getting this in front of a justice. It looks like it's got through the first hurdle, which is getting past the registrar. So that's a good thing. But will the justices have the balls, deeply buried underneath those heavy skirts they wear, to fairly judge the evidence rather than look desperately for a loophole not to hear it? And I fear that is where we're going to wind up with that High Court challenge. They will find a loophole not to hear the evidence. Here's an interesting one. This was sent in from one of you, actually. It's a copy of a text I was sent. Now, a gold town in Victoria, NAB, National Australia Bank, pretty well-known bank, a gold town in Victoria. Now, when we refer to gold towns in Victoria, we're talking about Ballarat, Bendigo, the Golden Triangle, essentially, lots of little towns in between those sorts of places, and a lot of gold in the ground there. So they're used to having money in their banks. Now, this National Australia Bank refused a customer a withdrawal of $25,000 because he was buying a V8 HSV Senator. They claimed it was a scam. The problem was the seller of the car went to the bank with the car and the papers and a 100-point ID to prove who they were, so that they could sell the car to this person who had $25K in the bank willing to give to them. No, it's a scam, said the bank. It's too cheap, according to Redbook. So some twerp in the bank has done a Redbook on this guy's car that he's willing to sell for $25,000. He has a willing purchaser willing to pay $25,000, but his bank, the purchaser's bank, says, no, that's too cheap for that car. We're not giving you your $25,000. Needless to say, this bloke changed his account, closed his account immediately. But what happens? Oh, well, now he's got to wait and nominate where the funds in his account will go to. No cash. You can't cash out your account. No, you've got to nominate an electronic funds transfer account that they can pretend to put actual money in. Well, we don't have actual money. We've just got bits of paper and plastic and shit. I mean, I hope the normies are starting to wake up, folks. Things like that are going to affect them too. But do they realize it's a control measure? Are they even awake? Every day, sadly, I am seeing more and more evidence of people affected by the spicy dart. And mainly it is with their emotions. Their emotions are unregulated, or they've actually lost a fair range of their emotion, their empathy, particularly. I've noticed increasingly people have become unbelievably selfish about the smallest things, from fighting on a freeway to let a car merge ahead of you, like racing up and blocking the merging car in, essentially, so that they have to either speed up or slow down to get around the idiot. All the way through to much bigger deals. And I can't help but think we are seeing the beginning of that zombification that many have been talking about. The elites won't have to worry about it, though. They'll be stoned off their tits with a new drug. I shit you not. 21-year-old former flight attendant has been arrested after authorities discovered $3.3 million trafficking operation. Not cocaine or fentanyl, but a new drug made from human bones. Yeah. Officials say the disturbing substance was being sold on the black market as an elite psychoactive drug, and this suspect played a major role in the smuggling operation. Now, reports indicate the gruesome underground drug is created using chemically altered remains and has been circulating around the globe for some time. I can't imagine what would tempt anybody, regardless of their wealth, to go snorting human bone? I don't know. But rest assured, for the rest of us, we won't have to worry. Our drugs will be supplied free of charge and in abundance. Have no fear. We are now being, in Queensland and I guess around the rest of the country, cajoled into getting jabbed again. Now, the Gympie Times asks a very interesting question. Will you be getting your COVID shot this year? Unfortunately, it won't matter if we all say no. Many of our aged folks will go and get the flu shot, and it's pretty much the same thing. If you can avoid either, well, avoid the spicy dart at the best of times, but if you can get away with not having a flu shot, please do, because no good is going to come from it. Nothing good. All those new flu shots are put through with this new technology starting with M and ending in an A. You remember that? I've got to be careful what I say. I'm trying to keep the YouTube channel going because we haven't quite reached that next milestone in our viewers or our subscribers. So please, folks, like and subscribe. And I should also point out tonight, for the first time ever, we are getting chat from Rumble. So if you're watching us on Rumble, you will now be able to chat and be seen in our chat. Have those, if you're having something good to say, having those pop up on the screen, a bit like Sunflower, who is saying exactly what we all feel about the spicy dart and the snotty nose blocker. Don't go and do it, folks. It just simply ain't worth it. Not ever, not ever, not ever. Good to see that my moderators are all on the same page. Would be difficult, I guess, if we weren't, wouldn't it? All right, 28 likes and 154 watching. That's just on the one channel. So if you are watching, so I can tell you at the moment there are, and I'm not monitoring all the channels, but I can tell you at the moment there is probably twice that number actually watching. And over the course of the next 12 hours or so, there'll be probably close to 13 or 14 or 1,500 more of you just on the main VOF channel. It's the only one I really look at for views. But Rumble has also started to pick up. So by all means, folks, Rumble will be a great place to find us if you can't find us on YouTube. And that leads me to tomorrow night's show. I have been thinking about this quite a lot. It's a very serious subject, and I wondered whether or not I was going to get the VOF or the other U-turd channels blocked again or kicked off if I run tomorrow night's show on U-turd. Now, I've done some investigations through the channel today and a little bit yesterday, there is an awful lot of information available on SRA and MK Ultra on YouTube. So, and it is all first-hand information. So I am going to run the show tomorrow night on all the channels. However, that might mean the next day you won't find us on YouTube anywhere, but we will be on Rumble. Have no fear. So that's coming up tomorrow night. Now, I'm going to be speaking with Rachel Vaughan. If you are aware of Rachel's story, maybe you're not aware of Rachel's story. Rachel is an Adelaide girl, and we all know Adelaide has a very interesting satanic history. And she, unfortunately, was subjected to some of the worst of it through a family member. Now, she will explain a great deal of what she saw. I think at some point we might discuss the Beaumonts. That's the Beaumont children, because she does have some information on that. And it's amazing, all the information that she has supplied to South Australian Police, and all of it has been ignored or in other ways just passed over. So she has a phenomenal amount of information. Her father was highly involved in a couple of different areas in Adelaide in particular, and we will hear a story involving a personality at Channel 9, one that you and I grew up with. And I might leave it at that. That's coming up tomorrow night. So Rachel Vaughan and I will have a special guest in with her, with Rachel and I for that. A rather surprising guest, if I say so myself. Cass Smith will be joining us. So Cass grew up in Canberra, and there are a lot of deeply satanic stories about Canberra as well. And Canberra and Adelaide, there is a school of thought that says they were both built to a satanic plan. Cass has a lot of information about that. It would be interesting to see whether or not there is any shared information that can come out of that. So it'll be an interesting chat tomorrow night. Many people in Australia have been through satanic ritual abuse, and thankfully fewer, I hope, have been through an MK Ultra program where they have been subjected to God knows what terrifying things, including but not limited to murder. Fiona Barnett tells interesting stories, as does Rachel, and we'll hear them for ourselves tomorrow night. It's going to prove to be very interesting. Now then, why is Santos on police vehicles in outback New South Wales? Why are they? That would be a form of sponsorship, wouldn't it? I mean, does anybody think that's just a bit off? Why would the police need sponsorship to begin with? That's why we pay our taxes, isn't it? So that they can look after us, refill their pepper spray, and get a few more grenades and rubber bullets for us. Anyway, I'd like to know why Santos is sponsoring the police. It's all a little bit weird. A lot of interesting stuff going on in Gaza at the moment. Palestine and Palestinians in general have been able to sway public opinion in a fairly large way. Not so much here in Australia, but outside in other places, particularly in the UK. Now, this is The Guardian from a couple of days ago, but it is rare that you would see such a strident headline out of one newspaper. But then the Financial Times gets in too. Israel rebuke, Gaza assault condemned. And then the Times, UK ready to sanction top Israelis over Gaza. Now, a lot of Israelis want Netanyahu gone. the majority of Israelis want Netanyahu gone. Netanyahu is the prime minister and, I suppose, visible head of the Zionist movement. Now, we've spoken about the Zionist movement before as separate to Judaism because the Zionists are not Jews. They have stolen the name and stolen certain parts of the Jewish faith, but they've bastardized it and they've turned it into something evil. And now we're seeing their plan fully laid out, given the attacks in Gaza, the leveling of Gaza. They are going to dig it up. They are going to make it a beautiful river and put buildings up each side of it. Now, Donald Trump seemed to be all up for that. Seemed to be very, very invested in it. But now America, too, is saying, whoa, hang on, Israel, you got to stop doing what you're doing. And Israel is like that because they've trained us since the end of the Second World War to feel sorry for them. You cannot question a Jew in any way, shape, or form, much less a Zionist Jew who wants to see everybody else murdered. We are goyim, remember, to them. Goyim, less than animal. The Australian media is so wrapped up in Jewish money, it's sickening. I mean, you wouldn't expect the ABC to be able to lie straight in bed, but the bias that they show, the bias that Sky News shows, the bias of Channel 9, and probably lesser so, but still significant, from Channel 7. And I don't know if Channel 10 are even on the air anymore, are they? They got enough money to turn the transmitter on? I don't know. But their bias reporting, their favoritism, their positive Jewish slant, and their very, very negative slant on anybody who would question certain aspects of what's going on in Israel and in Palestine at the moment is abhorrent. There's not one person amongst them who will actually come out and tell the truth. Although, maybe there is from a likely source. Chris Smith came out on his radio show. Don't know if it was today, over the weekend, whenever it was, yesterday maybe. Somebody rang in and said, you spoke to a friend of mine on Friday at a Forest of the Fallen. And you explained then that you were very sorry for putting out misinformation about the jab, encouraging people to get it. And he went in and apologized again on the air. Had he known known then what he knows now, he never would have supported it. He never would have promoted it. He never would have been behind it in any way, shape, or form. Well, hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Gives you 20/20 vision every time. But at least he is the first mainstream media person that I'm aware of in the country, at least, to get up on his, I don't know whether it's broadly listened to or not, radio program and admit that he got it wrong when it came to promoting the spicy dart. He also admitted that all the information that they were fed was fed to them erroneously, fed to them by organisations they trusted and shouldn't have, because those organisations, like the TGA, are simply just not worth trusting. We all know that. There is no point. And then we have the filth appearing at Sydney Harbour to stop anybody, but more particularly dear old Mike, from preaching the word of God. Christians be damned. You will not be allowed to speak publicly, and you better not be carrying a sign. Well, maybe, as somebody suggested in the chat, everybody should go and support Mike and wear a T-shirt. Jesus saves. Jesus loves you. Come to Jesus. In fact, that's what it used to be called when you were in trouble. You were going to have a come to Jesus talk with your supervising parent. Well, maybe that's what we need. Some T-shirts saying come to Jesus for a talk. I don't know. Maybe we could put it on the other side of that shirt. Just saying. If you want to check out the merch, merch.vofhq.com. Merch.vofhq.com. And you'll be able to see what's going on there. Do I have anything else I wanted to show you? Yes, of course I did. There is a wonderful Indigenous lady who has got a hold of TikTok and put out what I consider to be one of the best speeches and a solution all at the same time from any Indigenous person ever on this subject. Watch this.
I've had a gutful of this fake token welcome to country crap. Every damn footy game, cricket match, concert, you name it, we've got to sit through the same rehearsed nonsense. Like it actually means anything to the average Aussies. It's not culture. It's a box-ticking exercise pushed down our throats. You want real respect? How about we honor the people who actually built and protected this country, our Anzac, our veteran, the men and women who gave their lives so that we can enjoy a beer and watch a game and live free. Instead of some awkward speech nobody connects with, let's have a minute silence before the game. Let's raise the flag, play the anthem proud, and remember our fallens. That's real, that's Aussie, not this guilt trip ritual that does more to divide us than unite us. Time to stand up for real culture, our shared Aussie identity.
What a bloody great idea. Piss off all this bullshit welcome to country and the corporation funds funding that bullshit. Give that money back to junior football or junior cricket. Or give it to the people you're throwing out of their tents off the fucking council parks. Do anything better than getting up and giving a speech to a stadium packed full of uninterested people and a television audience that is insulted by it. Congratulations to that lady. And what a bloody great idea. Give us that minutes of silence, that 1 minute of silence. Oh, no, that'll take away from the Anzac Day footy game. It will not. 60 seconds of silence so that we can remember those people who have gone before us and fought for our freedom. Or at least that's what they thought they were doing. I think that's a bloody great thing that we could do, and a hell of a lot more unifying than two blokes dressed in rabbit skins blown into a stick telling us some story that nobody is particularly interested in hearing. Why? Not because it's not relevant, not because it's an Aboriginal story. No, we're not interested in hearing it because it's being forced down our throat. Shoved down our throat without our consent. And if you get pissed off at it, I know many of you do because I've seen you get pissed off in the chat about it, we are not alone. Oh, yeah, good point, Agate Master. It is hate speech on a gentle scale at every game, every public event, filled with whining bastards that we apparently elected. You believe that? I got a bridge in Sydney to sell you. Yeah. I'll calm down a little bit. There was one other thing. Oh, yes, I know what I wanted to show you. So we were talking about the rock slide in Switzerland. This is Mount Etna. Now, if you have a bit of a look and keep an eye on the right-hand side of your mountain there, watch that. And then watch this pyroclastic cloud as it comes down and meets the white cloud in the left of screen. Watch what happens there. Isn't that an amazing? That's all the oxygen being sucked in to that pyroclastic cloud. And amazing to watch it. The eruption goes out like a wave comes into the shore and then goes back out again. It was pretty wild. So that was the Mount Etna eruption, which was all pretty flash. Let me just stop that here because it's got a very annoying noise that goes on behind it. Pardon me. But then in Turkey, there has been an earthquake. And boy, has there been an earthquake. Now, this earthquake did manage to knock over a couple of buildings. It has killed a few people, over 100 people from memory, and probably still counting. However, what it did do was split the earth for 400 kilometers. Have a look at this.
Because this is really groundbreaking and it's significant. And I also want to show you a picture that was then taken of that rupture that we saw on the camera. And I think there you even see the magnitude of this. So what we see on the picture here, the webcam was positioned on the opposite side behind that gate. So since that Sagaing fault is a major fault line where the Indian and the Sunda plate meet, and as always, where plates meet, they can move towards each other, away from each other, or slip past each other or underneath each other. And this video, and that's why this is so great, it provides us clear evidence of the side-to-side movement of a strike-slip fault. One side of the land.
It's unbelievable to see the earth move several meters, just slip sideways. Unbelievable. So those sorts of things are happening in Europe at the moment, on top of all the interesting and exciting things that are happening with Russia and Ukraine and UK and France and supposedly America. Vince and I were having a bit of a chat today about what's going on there at the moment, particularly in America, or with America targeting information to Ukraine. Ukraine are using American, French, and German long-range missiles with a medium-range missile from the POMs. Now, that medium-range missile is capable of reaching fairly deeply into most parts of Russia. The long-range missiles are capable of reaching the other side of Russia. What will Putin do in retaliation for that threat, given what happened with the drone attack that was launched recently and took out what is estimated to be 1/3 of the bomber fleet that Russia possesses? And how did Ukraine manage to pull that off with a bunch of drones? Well, turns out they've been planning it for 18 months. I find that hard to believe. The drone technology that they were using 18 months ago is nothing like the drone technology that was used that night. However, the story goes that they've been planning this for 18 months. And what they did was load hundreds of drones on trucks and drive those trucks from Ukraine or wherever they were loaded, I suspect somewhere near the Polish border, and drive those trucks into Russia on normal trucking runs, doing, whatever kind of deliveries or things were still going on at the time. But for whatever reason, in a war zone, it seemed possible to get a large volume of trucks out with an even larger volume of drones inside them. One of those trucks got as far as 4,000 kilometers away from Ukraine. They got to Siberia, where an attack was made on aircraft there. Now, this was a coordinated attack at a set time. I guess they opened up the trucks. They let the drone operators who were working remotely take control of the drones. And in some cases, in fact, in most cases, these vehicles were parked on the boundary of these military airfields and other buildings that they attacked and had been parked there for some time. So I don't know. That's a very sneaky little attack. How much of it was planned 18 months ago and the sort of drone technology that was used, interesting. I'm also seeing a lot about tethering of drones and tethered drone operations. I used to be very involved with all sorts of new drone ideas, and tethering drones was one idea we looked into for security. It was possible to tether a drone and keep it flying for 12 or 14 hours. However, the only problem you have with a tether is the tether. And if you're going to be flying it around somewhere, that tether cannot catch anything, or it dramatically shortens your flight time. I'm unsure how these tethered drone systems are working in Ukraine. Somebody was trying to explain to me the other day that they work as a mothership, and then when they get to a certain point under tether, they then sever the tether and become a terminal guidance system. I guess that's possible, and I guess they're saying they have tethers up to kilometers long, which is great, but you would have to be in the wide open spaces to use it, making you, I would have thought, an extreme target. So I'm looking more into that. If you've got details on those, I'd be really keen to find out because, well, I just like drone technology and, it's a bit of a fun thing. I think that's about it for you for tonight, folks. I've had a bit of a natter. CERN. What's going on with CERN? Alpha Bluebeam, NASA 5G. Yep. All interesting statements, and I can't agree with I can't not agree with any of them. Thank you, Ange. Oh no, Carla's droning on. Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, I do get droned on occasionally. Vape King, $2 million underground bunker here on YouTube's like a 3-bedroom house underground. Surely an elite. Well, if you have the land, you can build these sorts of things now. There is a process. I forget what it's called now, but they basically, if you're lucky enough to have something like a rock overhang or big rock and a cave or something on your property, there's this mob that comes in and they inflate a thing inside the cave, which essentially measures it. Then they come back and they spray the inside of the cave with something, and then they fit an inflatable cocoon, whatever you'd call it, thing that goes into your cave, and then that hardens. It can be and is insulated and all that sort of stuff, and you can live in it. And by the time you've spent maybe 2 or 3 years doing the landscaping out the front, nobody would ever know that there is a house in a rock face. There are many of those sorts of houses around. In fact, Vince is going off, I think it's one day next week, to film the opening of a container. And oh no, that doesn't sound terribly exciting. However, this container is a container home, and it's one of those ones that you just open up and it expands as you keep opening it up. So be really interested to have a look at those and learn more about how they're going to be putting that up. So that'll happen on FBN with Vince, but he's going off, I think it's one day next week to go and film that. So good luck to him. All right, folks, love you dearly. Thank you so much for spending your Tuesday with me here a little bit. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed to the VOF channel, please go to YouTube and type in VOF and you should find me. That would be the main channel that we have. And if you're not already a part of that, would love you to be part of that. We're trying to reach a milestone, not that it really means anything to YouTube or anything else. It's just one to get to. Vince and I, this channel has been so suppressed for so long. I told Vince a bit about it today. A lot of the suppression happened before Vince and I started working together. And I told him today just, how badly the suppression came on. I guess I can rehash that here a little bit. So 4-5 years ago, whenever I started this, I was gathering supporters at a rate of hundreds a day, to a point where I managed to blow through. I picked up 1,000 in one day. I think that got me to go live streaming, and then after that, I was picking up a lot of people every day until we got to 9,000 people, 9,000 subscribers. That was the time. At that time, they'd just taken down the Aussie Cossacks channel, and they were demonetizing anybody who was talking about anything like I was talking about. Now, I may have been a bit late to the party. Certainly wasn't the YouTube scheme of things at any rate, because at that stage, the earnings that I was getting out of YouTube were not phenomenal. It was about $700 a month. But that ended then and went back to nothing and had to restart and rebuild. And we have never been able to get it back over $200 a month, ever. Since that time. Now, that's because of the suppression and the algorithms and all the other bits and pieces that they put on it. And we can see that in our analytics and different bits and pieces. Their analytics tell the truth to a story, to a point, because their analytics actually do tell lies. But we'll talk about all that another day. Sometimes it's just not worth talking about U-turd for a variety of reasons. So at any rate, we just would like to get to that 11,000 marker on Voice of Freedom. We know that we have about 25,000 core supporters, so across all our channels. And I thank you for your support in that regard. But if you haven't already joined the Voice of Freedom one, the VOF, so go to YouTube and type youtube.com/VOF, and you will come straight to the Voice of Freedom VOF page. If you can subscribe to that and like that, that would be great. And leave a comment in the video. I'm finding a little bit of time, every few days, to go in and try and look at the comments and reply to a few of them, or the ones that actually need replying to. So I am getting across it. It's just finding a bit of time. That will get easier in the next few weeks. But there will be also some other bits and pieces of news coming out in the next few weeks that I'll need to let you in on. And no, I nearly let it slip out. I'll wait until it's a few weeks down the track. Love your work, folks. Be safe if you're going to work tomorrow, or if you're going out to play. Just make sure, wherever you are, avoid the dickheads, especially the ones on the road.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!